Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving into the intense world of martial God Asura. If you're a fan of epic battles, martial arts, and a protagonist who rises from nothing to dominate, this is a story you don't want to miss. We'll be exploring its thrilling plot, powerful characters, and what makes it stand out in the world of cultivation novels. So sit back, grab your favorite snack, and let's enter the world of Azura. Chapter 1, Outer Court Disciple. Night. The round moon was hanging high and stars filled the sky. However, within the river of stars, there were 9 colored lights lingering amongst them, and they were especially dazzling. Abnormal signs appear in the sky, which means a divine body will descend. On the summit of the imperial city in the 9 provinces, an old man in golden clothes stood with his hand behind his back, and he was looking up into the night sky. Behind him were tens of thousands of imperial city experts. All of them were half-kneeled as if waiting for some command. *BZZ**. Suddenly, the lights condensed and formed into 9 colored lightning. It came striking down from above the river of stars and the heavens. At that instant, the black night became a white day. Even before the strike of the lightning, the ground was already rumbling and fiercely trembling. But that 9-colored lightning, the moment it collided with the land, it did not do any terrifying damage. Rather, it completely disappeared. At the same time, the world was enveloped by the night once again. The originally bright night sky darkened quite a bit, as if some important essence was removed, and the former Senire days were restored. The old man's eyes were abnormally bright and his excited body was even trembling. He pointed towards the location in which the lightning had landed, within the borders of the Azure province. "Bring all the infants that were born tonight back to the imperial city." "Yes, sir." The thunder-like response resonated past the horizon, and tens of thousand imperial city experts headed towards the Azure province. They swore to look for the divine body and give it to the imperial court for use. Time passed. 5 years elapsed with a blink, and although people still remembered the frightening scene that year, no one knew the actions of the imperial court. Within the borders of the Azure province of the 9 provinces, amongst the countless of schools, the Azure Dragon School was one of them. Today, once again, it was the annual recruitment of disciples for the Azure Dragon School. There were oceans of people outside of the school. Every time, the busiest people were the outer court disciples. All the responsibilities of the admittance for the school were all pushed onto their heads. Outer court disciples. They were the ones that did the hard and thankless tasks. Not only were their position lowest in the school, they were even looked down upon by outsiders. The reason was very simple. If they were an outer court disciple, it meant that their aptitude was horrible, and in their entire life, it would be very hard for them to have any big achievements, so naturally, they were despised upon. "Oi, what's with this attitude? Do you know who I am?" A lady who wore gorgeous clothes had a boy with her as she pointed and loudly yelled at a young man. "I am very sorry. It is already late now and the school will close soon. Please come back tomorrow." The young man's delicate face was still young and tender, but between his eyebrows, he had a bit of heroic spirit. He was called Chu Feng. He was 15 this year, and he was one of the tens of thousands of outer court disciples in the Azure Dragon School. Although he was an outer court disciple, Chu Feng was different from all the others. He did not feel inferior to others, and he did not degrade himself. He did not feel afraid or scared while treating others, and he was very calm. "Come back tomorrow. You think I'm an idiot? These are the mountains. Where are you even going to let us sleep? You must arrange a place of residence for me, or else I'll go find your elders for reasoning." The lady did not listen and did not care. She even grabbed onto Chu Feng's clothes. "Chu Feng, have you met with trouble?" But just at that time, a sweet voice could be heard. Looking at that direction, a young female who wore purple was walking over. Although there was a faint smile on her mouth, her eyes were fierce and they tightly stared at the lady. As she saw the young female, the color of the lady's face instantly changed and a strong expression of fear gushed out. It was not because of anything else. It was just because the young female was wearing the purple robe, and that was a mark of the inner disciples. The lady hiddenly cursed. She originally thought she could use her status to make things difficult for the young man in front of her. Who would have thought that the unremarkable young man in front of her had the support of an inner disciple? The inner disciples were an existence that she couldn't offend. It's nothing, I was just inquiring some things from him. The lady explained while smiling. The young female glared at her and only said one word, scram. At that instant, the lady's body couldn't help but tremble and her face was already ashen. But she did not hesitate at all. She pulled the boy and quickly left, and under the panic she even tripped, which made her look very rough. Seeing that, Chu Feng helplessly shook his head and said politely to the young female next to him, "Thank you very much, Chu Yu. No need to be so polite, we're family, right?" Chu Yu was a bit displeased. She was correct. They were indeed family. They came from the same family, Chu. Chu Yu was Chu Feng's cousin, from Chu Feng's father's brother line, and she was only 1 year older than Chu Feng. However, Chu Yu already passed the inner disciple exam 3 years ago and became an inner disciple. She was now in the 4th level of the spirit realm. "We need to follow the school rules," Chu Feng said with a brilliant smile. Tien, what he meant by following the school rules was being respectful to elders, as inner court disciples, outer court disciples. Looking at Chu Feng behaving like that, Chu Yu's heart ached. "Chu Feng, are you still not going to participate in this year's inner disciple exam? Or is it that you still haven't reached the 3rd level of the spirit realm?" Chu Feng did not respond and a faint smile still hung on his face. No one knew what he meant. Seeing that, Chu Yu took off a bag from her waist and put it in Chu Feng's hands. "Refine it. Perhaps it'll help you break through the 3rd level." Chu Feng opened the bag and instantly, strong spiritual energy was emitted from it. A bright, sparkling, transparent saint spirit grass that was the size of a finger laid within. "Chu Yu. This is too precious, I can't take it." Chu Feng hurriedly returned it back to Chu Yu. Saint spirit grass. It was like a panacea for martial training and it was extremely precious. It had endless usefulness for those within the spirit realm. To increase their training speed, the Chu family would supplement 1 saint spirit grass to the Chu family members every year. Chu Yu was also supplemented by the family, but she didn't use it and gave it to Chu Feng. It really moved Chu Feng, so he really couldn't accept it. "When I say I give it to you, you should take it. You are my little brother after all." Chu Yu was slightly irritated. "Oh, when were you so generous and even started to give saint spirit grasses to people? Look, I am your little brother as well, and coincidentally, I will almost have a breakthrough into 4th level of the spirit realm. How about you give the saint spirit grass to me?" A young man around the age of Chu Feng walked over and he was also wearing clothes of the inner court disciples. He was called Chu Zhen and he was also from the Chu family. 5 years ago, he entered the Azure Dragon School at the same time as Chu Feng. However, he became an inner disciple 2 years ago. "Chu Zhen, you've already broke past the 3rd level of the spirit realm and successfully condensed spiritual energy. Even if you don't have this saint spirit grass you can rank up quickly. But Chu Feng has not condensed spiritual energy yet, so this saint spirit grass is more important to him." Chu Yu forcibly put the saint spirit grass into Chu Feng's hands. "Yep, you are correct, but sadly he doesn't want it." Chu Zhen spread his hands open and sneered. "Who said that I didn't want it?" But then, Chu Feng lightly smiled and unrestrainedly put the saint spirit grass in his pocket before saying, "Chu Yu, I will borrow this saint spirit grass. On a later date I will return them back twofold." Millimeter, okay. Seeing that Chu Feng accepted it, Chu Yu was already happy, so she just randomly responded and didn't care whether Chu Feng would return it back or not. "If you're taking it then why return it? Giving you this saint spirit grass for you to use is such a waste." Chu Zhen's face had a really ugly look on it. Chu Feng just smiled and ignored him. He then said to Chu Yu, "Chu Yu, I will participate in this year's inner disciple exam. HMPH, you? If you can pass the inner disciple exam, I'll give this year's supplemented saint spirit grass to you." Chu Zhen looked at Chu Feng with contempt. "Is that true?" Chu Feng didn't really believe it. "Chu Yu will be the witness. But what if you can't pass it? Then the saint spirit grass I get this year will belong to you." Leaving that sentence behind, Chu Feng continued to throw himself into the work of outer court disciples. Chu Zhen, we are family. Why do you always need to make things so hard for Chu Feng? Chu Yu looked at Chu Zhen with annoyance. Family? Chu Yu, you should know that Chu Feng isn't part of our Chu family. After entering the school for 5 years, he still hasn't passed the inner disciple exam. He is absolutely the disgrace of our Chu family. In the entire Chu family, which one likes him? Only you treat him nicely and you even give your own Saint Spirit grass to him for use. Chu Zhen really did not understand. You are truly stupid. Chu Yu was a bit angry and after glaring at him for a moment, she walked away. On the other hand, Chu Zhen smiled. He really was happy. Although he didn't get Chu Yu's Saint Spirit grass, he knew that this year, Chu Feng's Saint Spirit grass would certainly be his. A bit into the night, in the resting area for the outer court disciples. It was complete darkness. After being busy for the entire day, everyone was very tired and they slept very early. Only Chu Feng's room was still lit up by light. He sat on the front of the bed, took out the Saint Spirit grass that Chu Yu gave him and muttered, "I hope this Saint Spirit grass can make you full." After saying that, Chu Feng closed both his eyes, clamped the Saint Spirit grass between both his palms and did a strange hand seal. At that instant, the spiritual energy inside the Saint Spirit grass started to enter Chu Feng's body through his palm and it converged into his dantian. Dantian. At the same time, chewing sounds came from Chu Feng's dantian as if something was having a meal. If you looked through his skin, you would discover in the deep part of Chu Feng's dantian, a lump of lightning was occupying there. That lump of lightning had 9 colors and every color was like a huge lightning beast. It emitted a terrifying aura that did not belong to this world. Chapter 2, Beauty Elder. Chu Feng wasn't really from the Chu family. He was an adopted son by Chu Yuan, the 5th oldest in the Chu family. That caused Chu Feng to be pushed aside and to be humiliated at a small age. If it wasn't for Chu Yuan's protection, he would have already been kicked out of the Chu family. Because of that, Chu Feng was very thankful towards Chu Yuan, and swore to become the pride of Chu Yuan and to win back some honor. 5 years ago, Chu Feng was exactly 10 years old and it was the best age to train in the martial arts. Him at that time had many expectations for training, because he felt that the time to prove himself had arrived. However, he never would have thought after entering the Azure Dragon School for 1 month, lightning would strike his body and enter his dantian. At first, Chu Feng even thought it was good luck, because when he started training, his speed of improvement was astonishing. In 2 short months, he arrived at the 2nd level of the spirit realm. That speed was completely abnormal, and because of that, Chu Feng didn't dare to tell it to anyone, so he hid his strength and continued training. But the good scene did not last long. Just as Chu Feng thought he became a genius, change happened within his body. Because of that change, it made it so his cultivation stopped and did not move forward, and he was labeled to have the most horrible talent of a lifetime. BZZ*. At that time, the Saint Spirit grass in Chu Feng's hands was being refined and absorbed by his dantian. His refining speed was extremely fast and it exceeded common sense. Normally, with Chu Feng's strength, it would take at least 1 month to refine the Saint Spirit grass. However, looking at it now, it was already halfway refined just after a short while, and Chu Feng's dantian that felt like a never-ending cave also had a feeling of being full. BZZ*. Suddenly, light floated over Chu Feng's hand and the other half of the Saint Spirit grass instantly disappeared. Also, at the same time, everything changed in Chu Feng's dantian. The 9 lightning beasts interwove with each other. It was hurriedly moving, and it was actually condensing. Finally, it turned into a pill-like object. After the pill formed itself, endless spiritual energy surged out from it like a tide washing Chu Feng's body. Very soonly, it permeated through his entire body. Whoosh. Chu Feng suddenly opened his eyes, and there were traces of lightning in them. An indescribable expression hung on his face. I succeeded. After 5 years, I finally succeeded. Chu Feng was incomparably joyful. He jumped down from the bed, and as he walked around, he sized up his body. In the journey of martial cultivation, the known realms were the following: Spirit, Origin, Profound, and Heaven. Those were the 4 big realms, and every realm was divided into 9 levels. The first level of the spirit realm. The main point of it was to train the physical body with special methods, and to increase strength. But after reaching the second level of the spirit realm, one must use ways to condense spiritual energy. Only people who successfully condensed their spiritual energy in their dantian could truly start their path in martial cultivation. Chu Feng's body changed and it made it unable to condense spiritual energy. The divine lightning in his dantian were like 9 hungry wild beasts. The spiritual energy that Chu Feng condensed would always be engulfed by that divine lightning. But he didn't give up. It was because he found out that although the divine lightning did engulf his spiritual energy, there was a limit. As long as he kept on providing spiritual energy towards his dantian, he could fill it up one day. And today, he finally succeeded. This is a really strong feeling. Endless amounts of spiritual energy is surging into my body, as though it was going to break through my body. This feeling was inconceivable to Chu Feng. He never would have thought that the divine lightning would directly condense into a pill and occupy a place in the dantian. The spiritual energy that the divine lightning was giving off was very dense and it was beyond imagination. He knew that even with his 5 years of non-stop cultivation, he could not condense such strong spiritual energy. The reason why he could was because of that divine lightning. *BZZ*, but just at that time, Chu Feng's body suddenly became stiff, and his expression also changed greatly. The divine lightning was changing. His power instantly increased by several times, and he suddenly broke through again and stepped into the 4th level of the spirit realm. Have the hard times stopped and the good times come? Chu Feng tightly clenched his fist and he felt that the explosive power in his body was worth his 5 years of suffering. Suddenly continuously breaking through 2 levels, the unexplainable method of becoming strong finally returned. He used a severe gaze to look towards the direction of the inner court and muttered, "Chu Zhen, I'll be taking your Saint Spirit grass." The Azure Dragon School's disciple recruitment only happened once a year and every time, it lasted for 10 days. After 10 days, the annual inner disciple exam would start. This time, Chu Feng, who had been silent for 5 years, would also participate. The exam location was a huge underground palace. Within the main hall of the underground palace, the number of people were like oceans and mountains and there were most likely over 10,000 people. Most of the people there were at the 3rd level of the spirit realm because everyone knew that the inner disciple exam required one to be at least in the 3rd level to pass. However, there was also a small portion of disciples at the 2nd level and they wanted to try to pass it within the confusion. There were people like that every year, but most of them ended with failures. The thing worth mentioning though, was that there were also a small portion of 4th levels there. They were not mediocre people who trained slow, and in fact, some of them were even geniuses. They intentionally waited until they were at the 4th level of the spirit realm before participating in the inner disciple exam. The reason? For the reward. When one reached the 3rd level, they could start training martial skills. Martial skills were very strong attacking methods. Not only could they thoroughly display strength, they could also make people gain power that exceeded the limits of their body. Because of that, martial skills were very precious, and even the rich and powerful families that has been existing for generations didn't have them. That was the reason why all sorts of families had to send their young generations into various schools for cultivation. In every school, there were a large amount of martial skills, and within the Azure Dragon School, as long as you become an inner court disciple, you could start cultivating the martial skills. Martial skills were also divided into ranks, and from the weakest to the strongest, there were 9 ranks. Within the inner court, the best martial skill book was only a rank 3-1. But, within the annual inner disciple exam, the first person to pass it would get a rank 4 martial skill book. That was why those people would rather train in the outer court and not enter the inner court. It was for the rank 4 martial skill book. Look, isn't that young Tian Yu? Where? It really is him. He's already at the 4th level of the spirit rank by the age of 13. It seems like first place in this exam will be him. In the ocean of people, one young man grabbed people's attention. To be more precise, it was a boy. There were dozens of thousands of disciples in the outer court and most of them were unknown characters. However, the focal figures that people paid attention to were mostly geniuses, in which this young Tian Yu was one of them. That may not be so. No matter how much aptitude young Tianyu has, he is, at the end, a child. It would be very hard for him to get first. There are many unknown talents in Azure Dragon School, and sometimes geniuses may not be able to beat the mediocre. For example, that Duan Yuxuan. Another outer court disciple pointed with his fingers at a cold young man. That person was called Duan Yuxuan. He has been in the Azure Dragon School for 6 years, and he was also originally an unknown character. But a few months ago, he unexpectedly defeated an inner disciple who was in the 4th level of the spirit realm. Because of that, his name was widespread and he became the focal character of the outer court. Silence. Suddenly, a loud and clear sound echoed. Looking at the source, everyone couldn't help but stare blankly. They saw a dozen or so silhouettes appear on the high platform in the hall. Most of them were aged, old people, and they were the outer court elders. But not only was the leader young, she was even a beautiful female. The female was wearing a red, skin-tight dress and it outlined her alluring curves. Especially under the dress, there were 2 straight, snow-white legs, and it could be said that they were perfect. Not only was her body attractive, her appearance was also extremely lovely. With round eyes, red lips, and an oval face, it was just like a fox face. She was the famous beauty elder of Azure Dragon School, Su Ru. Su Ru was a top-class character. She entered the Azure Dragon School at the age of 10, entered the inner court at the age of 12, and became a core disciple at the age of 15. But just as everyone were optimistic and thought that she would become Azure Dragon School's #1 disciple, she suddenly became an elder. No one had the inside information about this change, and up to today, it was still a mystery and it was discussed enthusiastically by people. It's Su Ru. Wasn't she supposed to be an elder in the inner court? Why did she come to the outer court? With the appearance of Su Ru, all of the male disciples opened their mouths and some even drooled. The outer court disciples were very young. Most of them were teenagers and some were even children. To them at their age, a mature female like Su Ru had the most charm. Su Ru didn't have the air of the elders as she charmingly smiled towards the crowd and said gently, "The exam rules are very simple. Enter the gate behind me and come out from the other gate. With that, you pass the exam. The only difference is that the first person to pass will get a rank 4 skill book. You can't even get this in the inner courts. But something worth mentioning is that the person who is first this year will get another special reward. Depending on one's perspective, this reward could be even more precious than the previous one." After saying that, Su Ru intentionally lengthened the intonation. The enchanting air filled the entire hall. Chapter 3, the start of the examination. What would it be? Someone asked curiously. Elder Su Ru is giving her body? Some were even shameless and had lewd thoughts. Although Su Ru was an elder, she was only 20 years old. Compared to the old antiques, she was a lot more easygoing. Because of that, a lot of people didn't worry at all when they talked like that. Su Ru only smiled charmingly in response to the guesses of the crowd. She raised 5 slim fingers, then said, 5 Saint Spirit grasses. What? 5 Saint Spirit grasses? I didn't hear wrong, did I? The reward are Saint Spirit grasses, and 5. With those words, the main hall went into chaos and everyone could not remain calm. Saint Spirit grasses were extremely precious and even the Chu family could only give each person 1 per year. To ordinary people, Saint Spirit grasses were priceless treasures and some had not even seen it before. Seeing that the Azure Dragon School could take out 5 of them, it was a huge temptation to the outer court disciples. But for most of the people, they could only dream about it because they knew that they had no chance in getting those Saint Spirit grasses. However, to the disciples who were aiming to be the first, they were all eager to give it a try and they got even more excited. Su Ru nodded with satisfaction as she saw the high spirits of the disciples. Then, she waved her hand. Behind her, rumbling noises came. The gate that was dozens of feet tall slowly opened. What are you waiting for? Don't want to pass the exam? Su Ru smiled beautifully as she looked at the disciples who were staring blankly. Go .. At that moment, endless cheers resonated and the tens of thousands outer court disciples were like wild horses who got rid of its reins as they all rushed towards the huge gate. Chu Feng went along with the flow of people and continued forward. Finally, they entered a deep cave. The cave was very vast, but it was very dark in there. The field of vision was extremely low and people knew the danger of traps that could be triggered at any moment. Go. For the rank 4 skill, for the 5 Saint Spirit grasses, go ___. But of course, there were some people that cared about money and didn't care about their life. They knew that there was danger but they still went ahead by themselves and didn't even look back. There was even quite a few of people who were like that. Asterisk whoosh 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 asterisk. But after going ahead for 100 meters, whooshing sounds came in front and endless amounts of silver needles were shot out from the wall, and they shot towards the crowds as if it was rain. Where In an instant, all sorts of cries echoed. The disciples that rushed in front were caught off guard and over half of them fell. Regardless, people still continued forward and they did not have any traces of retreating. They madly ran deeper into the cave. Although the silver needle was strong, it wouldn't kill, and they knew that. After all, it was only a mechanism, and to the people at the 3rd level of the spirit realm, they could dodge it as long as they were careful. As they continued to go in deeper, the silver needles also got denser and denser, and the people that they hit were usually caught off guard. In situations like those, the crowds quickly distanced themselves. The people who were running at the front were no longer people who came hoping they would pass in the confusion. They were strong people such as Yang Tianyu and Duan Yuxuan. It had to be mentioned that those people were indeed not ordinary. As they walked in the storm like needles, they needed to be extremely careful. But it was as though they were leveling the ground with their shoes, and it didn't look like they were running through mechanisms at all. They were simply people in a running race. Chu Feng was always behind them in the spirit realm army that consisted of people at the 3rd level. He did that for 2 reasons. Firstly, he didn't want to stand out. Secondly, his situation was very special and he didn't want to show his true strength too early. That was why he was waiting for a chance where he could surpass everyone when no one was looking. Duan Yuxuan, you're already so old yet you can't even win a child like me in a race. Don't you think it's a bit embarrassing? Little brat, in the journey of martial cultivation, age doesn't matter. Only strength does. If you want to boast, then do that after you win. Let us travel through time a bit. There were only 2 shadows left in the very front. They were Duan Yuxuan and Yang Tianyu. Both of them were at the 4th level of the spirit realm. One of them had outstanding talent, the other had plenty of experience. The 2 of them were fairly even and the tension between them got stronger and stronger. It was because they knew that their largest competition was each other. As long as they win over their opponent, the prize for being first would belong to them. Suddenly, a breeze of wind came from the front. The 2 of them were surprised as they looked closely and they couldn't help but slow down their paces. It was because dense fog appeared in front of them. The cave was already dark, and with the fog it meant that their vision would be even poorer. With that, it also greatly increased the difficulty of dodging the mechanisms. Even if it was them, they needed to treat it carefully. Good chance. Just as everyone was slowing down, Chu Feng secretly rejoiced. He went forward in huge strides, and with a whoosh, his entire body was like an arrow leaving a bow as he flew forward. Asterisk whoosh asterisk. At that time, Duan Yuxuan was concentrating on dodging the silver needles. Suddenly, a black shadow flashed past him. Without giving any time for him to react, that person disappeared once again. Did I imagine it? With that, it made Duan Yuxuan feel quite a bit of shock. He thought it was Yang Tianyu at the start, but he noticed that Yang Tianyu was not far behind him. Then, he was distracted with his thoughts. The person who successfully left everyone behind, Chu Feng, didn't care about them that much as he increased his speed to the maximum. After that long running, he didn't feel any fatigue. The spiritual energy within his body was endless to take and it continuously surged from his dantian. Not only that, his speed and strength, hearing and vision power all surpassed the people who were at the same level than him. At least it greatly surpassed Duan Yuxuan and Yang Tianyu. Chu Feng wasn't too surprised at that chance because it was something special about him. He already seen this specialness 5 years ago. From now on, His specialness returned and it gave him incomparable self-confidence because there was no one who could call themselves a genius in front of him anymore. As he ran with flying speed, Chu Feng finally left the mechanism stage, exited the dark cave, and arrived in the middle of a wide hall. At the end of the hall, there was a tall platform made out of stone. On top of the stone, there were several items. It was the rank 4 martial skill book and the 5 spirit saint grasses. Seeing those things, Chu Feng was a bit emotional. However, he didn't not rush ahead. Rather, he looked at the stone doors on the side of the hall. So behind those are the legendary fierce beasts. Chu Feng's mouth curved up in expectation. He knew that this exam just only started. The creatures that he was going to face were terrifying, bloodthirsty, ruthless creatures, called fierce beasts. Elder Su Ru, look, this is too astonishing. I've been guarding here for so many years, but this really is the first time that I've seen a disciple that passed through with such a speed. Within a mysterious stone room in the underground palace, an old elder was staring at a disordered stone and astonishment filled his gaze. That was not a normal stone. It was a mechanism within the underground palace. The stone only disordered itself after a mechanism got triggered. Looking at it, the entire stone was disordered. Which only meant one thing. Someone already passed the mechanism stage. The fastest person to clear the mechanism stage took 2 hours from the past examinations. But currently, only 1 hour had passed. This change grabbed everyone's attention. The dozen or so elders in the stone room all gathered around and they were all very startled. It seems that there's an interesting character within the outer court disciples this year. Su Ru also gathered over, and as she looked at the disordered stone, she nodded with satisfaction. Since it's like this, we can't let him pass so easily. Let me make it more interesting. After saying that, she looked above the stone. There were 3 round stones embedded in the wall. Suddenly, she smiled strangely, and hit the 3 stones with 3 bangs. Don't touch it. Seeing that, all of the elders there were alarmed. But it was too late. At that time all 3 stones were already pressed by Su Ru. What? Didn't you tell me that these stones would release the fierce beasts? Looking at the elders in panic, Su Ru also felt that something was wrong. Those 3 stones do indeed release the fierce beasts, but they cannot be pressed at the same time. If they are pressed at the same time, they will release all the imprisoned fierce beasts at the same time. That would be 30 rank 2s, 9 rank 3s, and 1 rank 4. After saying that, Elder Li's face was already pale and his voice was trembling a bit. The elders that guarded there understood the fierce beasts very clearly. They were ruthless and terrifying creatures, and they were many times stronger than the people who were at the same level. Seeing so many fierce beasts being released at the same time, a round of slaughter could not be avoided. To think of the tens of thousands of disciples in the underground palace being slaughtered by the fierce beasts was not a pleasant thought. Why did you not remind me earlier? At that time, Su Ru's face also changed greatly. Her body rose and became the wind. When the stone doors opened, she already disappeared. Elder Li, what should we do? Everyone's gazes landed on this aged elder. What else can we do? Hurry and go help. Elder Li bellowed angrily and rushed out. Chapter 4, even fiercer than the fierce beasts. Chu Feng had heard of the infamous fierce beasts. They were a type of creature that could cultivate. They were divided into 9 ranks according to their strength, and they corresponded to the 9 levels of the martial cultivators in the spirit realm. However, from rumors, the strength of a rank 3 fierce beast was far stronger than a martial cultivator who was in the 3rd level of the spirit realm, and rank 3 fierce beasts could even be compared to cultivators at the 4th level of the spirit realm. That was why even if it was Chu Feng, he didn't dare to be arrogant. He knew that there was a mechanism in the main hall, and when it was triggered, the fierce beasts would appear. Bang suddenly, a heavy noise resounded and the stone doors that locked the fierce beasts started to open. Strange. I didn't even enter the main hall. Why did the stone doors open? Chu Feng was astonished. Bang. But quickly after, the 40 stone doors at the side of the main hall all opened. That completely stunned Chu Feng. It was because in the darkness behind those stone doors, Pairs after pairs of blood-red eyes opened and a heavy bloodlust filled the entire main hall. Damn, this isn't a joke, is it? Chu Feng cursed. He clearly heard that in the last round of every exam, there would be one fierce beast. But what was this situation? Chu Feng didn't have much time to think about it too much because in front of his eyes, densely packed shadows leaped out from the stone doors and entered the main hall. He could clearly see that the shape of those creatures were similar to tigers but double their sizes. Their entire body was jet black and you could see their blade-like claws and ivory, as well as their pairs of blood-red eyes. There were a total of 40 fierce beasts, and since their appearances were not too different, they should be of the same kind. But upon closer inspection, Chu Feng found out that there were strange lines on their forehead. Clearly, it was the mark of their rank. Just at that time, one of the fierce beast growled and cast its gaze towards the high platform in the deeper parts of the main hall. Simultaneously, the gazes of all the fierce beasts were cast towards the high platform and they started to drool. Damn, you robbers. Seeing that, Chu Feng was angered. How could he let these fierce beasts take the precious treasures? With a curse, he rushed towards the platform. Just as Chu Feng entered the main hall, it quickly attracted the attention of the fierce beasts. That was quite good for him. A total of 40 fierce beasts all concurrently gave up on the Saint Spirit grasses, and they all surrounded Chu Feng and attacked him. It was as if to them, the blood and flesh of humans was more attractive than some spiritual medicine. Move. One rank 2 fierce beast attacked head-on. But with a punch from Chu Feng, he blew off its head. It was unable to even survive a single strike. However, also at the same time, quite a few fierce beasts surrounded him and attacked. The terrifying killing intent was enough to make one's entire body tremble. But Chu Feng did not panic. He was as vigorous as a monkey, jumping left and right as he went back and forth within the crowd of fierce beasts. Every time he attacked, there was at least one fierce beast that died. At that time and moment, compared to the cruel fierce beasts, Chu Feng was an even scarier monster. Every part of his body was like an indestructible sharp weapon. Despite the rough skin and thick flesh of the fierce beasts, they could not withstand a strike from Chu Feng. At that moment, Chu Feng could feel that not only was the endless spiritual energy surging in his body, there was also the 9-colored divine lightning that he loved and hated. It was this divine lightning who gave him such strong power and forged a perfect body for him. Just as Chu Feng was killing furiously, a sharp growl came from behind. When he turned around to look, he couldn't help but be surprised. The sharp claws of a huge fierce beast was heading towards his head. That huge claw was different from the others as it was quite a bit stronger than the other fierce beasts. If he got caught in it, his brain would certainly shatter. Whoosh! Chu Feng reflexively jumped back as he attempted to dodge the huge claw. But the claw's speed was really too fast. Although Chu Feng's brain dodged the damage, the claws still landed on Chu Feng's chest. 5 bloody wounds were torn into his chest and the fatal pain made Chu Feng cry out loud. I will tear you apart. Other than feeling the pain, Chu Feng was even more angry. He already saw that there were 4 lines on the forehead of the fierce beast that attacked him, indicating that it was a rank 4 fierce beast. If he was some other person, then without a doubt, that person would turn around and run. Who cared if they were in the same level of cultivation? The power of the fierce beast would undoubtedly be stronger than the humans. But not only did Chu Feng not escape, he even crazily pounced towards that fierce beast. The movement, which had no care of his life, made even the unintelligent fierce beast hesitate subconsciously. Clang. As the fierce beast hesitated, Chu Feng solidly landed a punch on its forehead. But there wasn't the explosion of blood as expected. Rather, there was a loud sound, as if steel and iron collided. Even Chu Feng felt a wave of achiness from his fist, and it was as though the punch didn't land on the head of the fierce beast, but rather landed on a copper and iron wall. Chu Feng's punch was no small matter. The fierce beast wailed and it even backed off a few steps. It was obvious that it also felt the pain. Die for me. Seeing that his attacks had some effect, Chu Feng didn't hold back anymore. Swinging his arms, The after-images of the punches filled the air, flew in all directions, and his heavy fists were like a storm. They continuously punched the body of the fierce beast. It had to be mentioned that Chu Feng's exploding strength was too strong. Under the insane attacks, the fierce beast that was a few times larger than him was pushed back. The other fierce beasts that wanted to launch a surprise attack on him also undoubtedly received a punch, and got killed just like that. At the end, all 40 fierce beasts were completely killed by Chu Feng. Large amounts of bodies and heads were in strange areas, and their death were extremely wretched. The body of the rank 4 fierce beast was still intact. However, its huge brain was deflated by Chu Feng as it was alive. Hoo. The current Chu Feng was standing in a pool of blood and he was deeply gasping for air. After that bloodbath, more frightening wounds appeared on his body, but they weren't enough to kill him. Other than the attack of the rank 4 fierce beast, the wounds caused from all the others were only simple bruises and they didn't even scratch him. How strong is this fearful body? It was a question that Chu Feng asked himself. Compared to those fierce beasts, he felt that he had steel for tendons and iron for bones. That body exceeded the limits of humans, and once again, he recognized his specialness. After looking around with his eyes, Chu Feng leaped on the tall platform. Without even looking at them, he took the martial skill book and the Saint Spirit grasses. After doing that, Chu Feng didn't plan to open the huge closed door. He went back towards the direction in which he came from and re-entered the mechanism stage. Before Chu Feng left for long, within the stone room that closed the fierce beasts, a dozen or so shadows walked out. The one who led person was Su Ru. At that moment, whether it be Su Ru or the aged elders, their expression were very strange. They only saw Chu Feng continuously hitting the already dead rank 4 fierce beast. But to think that so many strong fierce beasts were only killed by one youth, it was unimaginable. Elder Li, who is that child? Su Ru inquired. Elder Li did not respond. He looked at the other elders behind him, but all the elders shook their head. You don't know what the name of such an outstanding disciple is? Su Ru's brows wrinkled, showing some displeasement. There are simply too many outer court disciples. If he was hiding his strength, then Elder Li's face was full of helplessness. Whatever. Hurry up and find out about his background, then tell me. Also, if he doesn't want to expose his strength, then leave it as he wishes and don't let him know that we are trying to understand his power. Su Ru instructed. As you wish. Elder Li and the others respond respectfully. While facing this inner court elder, they didn't dare to be unrespectful. Su Ru looked deeply and meaningfully at the direction in which Chu Feng left in, and only then did she enter the stone room while contemplating. Chapter 5, Azure Dragon Founder. After Su Ru and the other left, the main hall sunk into silence. A moment later, rapid stepping sounds could be heard from outside of the hall and one disciple quickly ran over. That person was Duan Yuxuan. But compared to the him before, it was like they were two completely different people. Messy hair, full of sweat, panting heavily, and running towards the high platform as if he was crazy. Haha. At the end, I am the first. You little child young Tian Yu, you want to fight me? I secretly endured in the outer court for 6 years. What was it for? I'll tell you right now, it's for these. Duan Yuxuan ran and cheered, as though he was possessed by a demon. His eyes were tightly glued to the tall platform and he didn't even notice the corpses of the fierce beasts in the hall. Whoosh he leaped and stably landed on the tall platform. But just as he was full of smiles, after looking down, it was like a lightning in a clear sky, and he was instantly shocked. It was because on that tall platform, it was completely empty. There wasn't even a single strand of hair. Damn, what's this? After a long while, he refocused. Only then did he notice that fresh blood was everywhere and the corpse of 40 fierce beasts were scattered in the hall. The death of every fierce beast was very soul-shaking and extremely bloody. That scene completely frightened him. With a poof he sat on the tall platform. He turned around and looked, but he discovered that the door to pass the exam wasn't opened. What is happening? Duan Yuxuan didn't know what to think and his thoughts were all scrambled. *tatata. Just at that time, young Tian Yu also ran over, but just as he arrived at the entrance of the hall, he stopped. After looking at the scene in the hall, he looked at the Duan Yuxuan on the platform. He stared with a blank face. You did this? Duan Yuxuan lightly chuckled, then said bitterly, if I said no, would you believe me? Of course I would believe you. It would be impossible for you to have such strong strength. Yang Tianyu shot him a glance and entered the hall. He examined the corpses of the fierce beasts. God, there's even a rank 4 fierce beast here. Whose work is this? After observing for a good while, they couldn't find out the answer. They never would have knew that someone with so much power was within the outer court. At the end, they even suspected that it was a situation planned by the elders, and the elders took the reward for being first. But when the level 3 Spirit Realm Disciple army arrived, the dramatic scene happened. Everyone thought that it was Yang Tianyu and Duan Yuxuan who killed the fierce beasts, and the two of them divided the reward between them. But then funny thing was, as they were facing the gazes of admiration from the crowd, Yang Tianyu and Duan Yuxuan did not deny it. Just like that, they magically became first. The huge door opened behind them and the cheers also came. Everyone was very happy because when they walked out of that huge door, they would become inner court disciples and a new life would come. But just as people were cheering, a youth walked over and he attracted everyone's attention. He was completely naked and he was even crying. He cursed while filled with grievance, who the hell is so cruel? Not only did they knock me out, they even took my clothes. What is this madness? As they looked at that scene, people were astonished. Only Chu Feng smiled and he slowly left the crowd while looking at his perfect, undamaged clothes. The inner court exam had ended. There were over 10,000 people who participated, but there were only 2,000 people who passed the exam. However, that was no small amount. You only become a real Azure Dragon disciple after entering the inner court. At the same time, you would also receive a more preferable treatment. To welcome the new disciples that entered the inner court, the elders even specially set up a banquet. The round moon hung high up in the night sky. There was plenty of singing and dancing in the inner court, and that raised the happy mood to the highest point. But Chu Feng did not join in the feast. He stayed within his new residence and he looked at his wound on his bare upper body. The wound was healing and the healing speed was extremely fast. If it continued at that speed, it only needed a few days for it to make a full recovery. The healing power was given by the divine lightning. What are you? Why did you choose me? It wasn't the first time that Chu Feng asked it that question. He asked countless number of times before, but he never got an answer. He still remembered the night 5 years ago. The sky of the Azure province was enveloped by the 9-colored lightning. The sky was as bright as the day and the lightning dancing was like a dragon. The thunder in the sky roared and the ground trembled. People even thought that the world was ending and everything was in disarray under the panic. But the Chu Feng, who was only 10 years old, couldn't help but run out the door and he headed towards a spacious land. Even until now, he did not know why he did that. It was as if there was some magic attracting him to go over to that place. After that, the divine lightning attached onto his body. No one saw it, but he knew the 9-colored lightning that shook the entire world was inside his dantian. That divine lightning gave Chu Feng such a strong body. However, Chu Feng did not understand why such a powerful thing was attached onto his body. Whatever, if you don't answer, I won't ask. You and me are one after all. Chu Feng smiled with relief. It was luck and not misfortune, and if it was misfortune then he couldn't avoid it. If this divine lightning really wanted to do anything bad to him, then with his current power, he had no chance of resisting. But up until now, the divine lightning had only brought benefits, so he didn't bother thinking about it anymore. Chu Feng put his clothes back on and cast his gaze at the book on the head of the bed. On the book, there were 3 big words. 3 thunder styles. Chu Feng picked up the book and started to flip through it. It was the first time that he got in touch with a martial skill book, so he was a bit excited in his heart. Rank 4 skill, 3 thunder styles. Created by the Azure Dragon founder. After mastering, lightning speed. Thunderous power. As strong as a rank 5 skill. After looking at the short description, Chu Feng took in a breath of cold air and said surprisingly, this is a skill that was created by the ancestor who founded this school. The Azure Dragon founder was the founder of the Azure Dragon School. 1,000 years ago, he was unrivaled as he traveled around the world. He had powers to fly in the sky, escape in the ground, move mountains, and fill oceans. He was a real expert in martial cultivation. In that era, the Azure Dragon School that was led by the Azure Dragon founder could be said to be the #1 school in all of the 9 provinces. The only one who could resist against the Azure Dragon School was the current overlord of the 9 provinces, the Imperial Court. But the good scene did not last for long. After the Azure Dragon founder passed away, the Azure Dragon School started to decline and it quickly fell from the ranks of the top schools of the 9 provinces. Today, even within the borders of the Azure province, they were only a second-class school. However, that really emphasized the personal strength of the Azure Dragon founder. The skill he created would certainly be quite a fine product within skill books. You could not get it with begging, but rather by chance instead. As he was being excited, Chu Feng quickly read the training methods and swore to succeed in practicing the 3 thunder styles. Chu Feng did not sleep at all, but at least he understood the ways to train the 3 thunder styles. First style was form. The second style was intention. The third style could create lightning. All in all, to train in the 3 thunder styles was extremely hard, but Chu Feng wanted to give it a try. After some washing his face and rinsing his mouth, Chu Feng didn't feel sleepy, so he headed towards the inner court's martial skill building. First of all, the martial skill building had the facilities for training martial skills. Also, because he couldn't expose that he was training in the 3 thunder styles, he needed to train in another martial skill to fool people. This is quite lively. He walked into the martial skill building, and suddenly, there was a huge opening. It was overcrowded in the vast main hall of the martial skill building. But that was reasonable. After all, there were 2,000 or so disciples that joined in the inner court yesterday. Those new disciples probably wanted to cultivate some martial skills. The martial skill building was divided into 6 floors. The first floor for choosing rank 1 skills, the second floor for choosing rank 2 skills, the third floor for choosing rank 3 skills, and for floor 4, 5, and 6, they were areas for cultivating the martial skills. Chu Feng kept on going up. He found out that the first floor was packed with people. The second floor was a lot better, and as for the third floor, there were very few people. That was all within expectations. Although it was said that the different ranks of the martial skills had different powers, the training difficulty was different as well. That was why a lot of people who entered the inner court would start training in the rank 1 skills, then after they mastered it they would choose the rank 2s, then lastly the rank 3s. But Chu Feng's goal was very clear. Even if the martial skill was only for defense, Chu Feng had to choose the strongest. Young man, I recommend that you don't bite off more than you can chew. The skills in here are not suited for you. But just as Chu Feng stepped onto the third floor, an aged voice entered his ears.